So I have in my season review / going into Blazers offseason stuff, I have said I'm not going to dive too much into transactional stuff until May 12th. Like May 13th is when I'm going to get heavy into it because it's just so many different paths right now. I could say, the Blazers should pursue player X. Well, if depending on where they draft, that could drastically change. And I think that's also true in the Blazers' pursuit of a big piece this offseason. The big name that is out there right now, and there will be others that follow, particularly if the Memphis Grizzlies get unceremoniously either knocked out in the last play-in game or if they get dusted by the Thunder, which will happen. You could potentially see some changes there and around the rest of the NBA as well. But Zion Williamson is a guy that this is not a shocker to if you cover the NBA. Dusty, you've talked about this off air for 2 years. Zion Williamson has been available.
Very much so.
But David Griffin tried to make it work because the talent is so overwhelming. When he's on the floor, he's 27, 8, and 5. Like he's singularly dominant. His ability to finish at the rim and be a playmaker is otherworldly. And you get enamored with that talent because it is so dominant. I mean, we haven't had a rim finisher like him really since Shaq. A guy that is just, you can't do anything with him. When he gets downhill, his ability to finish and create around the rim is unmatched. And so he's going to hit the market. Should the Portland Trail Blazers kick that tire?
Boy, this is tough because he is really good, but he comes with a ton of baggage. Mm-hmm. So much baggage, in fact, the clauses that are in his contract
are insane.
They're wild. So he's entering the final 3 years of his deal are not guaranteed,
None.
Which is rare when the number is 39.4, 42.1, 44.8.
When you're talking about a player of this magnitude, is unheard of.
He signed
for the lack of guarantees in his deal.
$197 million deal. Okay. Now, this is where these are the stipulations on that guarantees his contract. The criteria is 20% becomes guaranteed if he passes all 6 of his weigh-in checkpoints during the 24-25 season.
Which was 295 pounds.
He had to be 295. Okay?
So as a point of reference, and I don't know if it's been reported anywhere, I've talked to people in New Orleans that before this contract, he was upwards of 330 pounds.
40% of his 25-26 salary becomes guaranteed if he plays in 41 or more games during the 24-25 season. He did not.
Mm-hmm.
He only played in 30 games. Okay. 20 more if he plays in 51%, 20 more if he plays in 61% of the games. So 20% for the weigh-ins, 40% for just playing in 41 games. That gets you to 60%. 80% of his deal is fully guaranteed if he plays in 51 the previous year, and then 20 more percent if he plays in 61 games. He has only played in more than 61 games once in his career. He's been in the league since 2019. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
There's
also injury protection for his right foot. If he injures his right foot, you can void his deal.
So, think about what Zion has done here. So, right off the bat, whoever is trading for him,
you have a lot of protections.
Well, you're already looking at he only hit the marker that we know of for 20% of his contract, because the weigh-in, we don't know if he hit or not.
I've been told that he was underweight.
Okay, so he's got 20% of that. Mm-hmm. He did not hit any of the other markers there. 40% for the 41 games? Nope. 51 games? Hell no. 61? Good golly, Miss Molly, no. He only played in 30 games this past season. That right there, it says because his number that you're trading for isn't this what he ended up hitting. It's what the contract is, right? His cap number, but it's not fully guaranteed. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
Okay, so you're trading for a guy that is against the cap. He will account for all of the numbers that we just said
until it gets adjusted at the end of the year. But you don't get that until the end of the year, and you have those protections baked in. And also, if you do decide to void his contract because of violation of said guarantees, you are off the hook for the remaining.
The most games he has ever played in a season is 70 games, and he did it in the 23-24 season. So
the first full season
ago.
back out of COVID.
Other than that, he's played in 24, 61, which wouldn't that be a full season? COVID year?
Yeah, COVID year, yeah.
So full season there. Did not play all of 21-22 with an injury. 22-23 played in only 29 games that season. 70 games, and then this year, 30 games.
Mm-hmm.
I cringe at that injury history, and that's why I say no to Zion, because at this point, what is the year we have seen Zion Williamson where he is not injured?
I mean, he's always going to have something. He's always going to have something. That's just the reality of it. Unless somehow, some way he lost basically 30, 40 more pounds and was playing at like 260.
Yeah, he's 20. He'll be 25 in July.
Look,
we have not seen him healthy since, even when he was 18 years old, he was never healthy.
I mean, even before that. I mean, it wasn't just that. I remember his Hoop Summit year. He didn't play because he had a broken wrist.
Yeah.
So I saw Zion when he was 17 at Hoop Summit. I've seen Zion when he has come to town, and like, he is a physical marvel that you cannot truly fathom until you get next to him. And I'm not talking fat. I'm talking about how big he is.
Yeah.
He's overweight, all those things. He's also one of the most dynamic, explosive, powerful humans I've ever been next to.
Ever. He is.
It is.
But that's why he's always hurt.
Yeah, because he's quite literally too powerful for his own body, and then he's out of shape on top of it.
Yeah.
Like, the only way that whole thing stays together is if he is in otherworldly shape. And even then, you have to squint. Here's where it gets interesting for the Portland Trail Blazers. The previous general manager, David Griffin, had a relationship with the Portland Trail Blazers. Obviously, he struck the deal for C.J. McCollum. I was told the second Neil O'Shea got fired, David Griffin reached out to a mutual acquaintance and inquired, how can I get C.J. McCollum from Joe Cronin? And that's where that deal came from. And he was always interested in getting CJ. Beyond that, leading into Shaedon Sharpe's draft, the New Orleans Pelicans wanted Shaedon Sharpe. And that was, I think that's been reported publicly now. Willamette Weekly was a deep dive on Shaedon Sharpe a couple months ago. But the Pelicans, they wanted Shaedon Sharpe, and they were trying to see if the Blazers were going to take Dyson Daniels or Shaedon Sharpe, and they ultimately obviously took Shaedon Sharpe, but they had discussions around that. A year later, Scoot Henderson. Scoot Henderson was a player that the New Orleans Pelicans and David Griffin highly coveted. You got to remember, Scoot Henderson, Marietta, Georgia. It's not that far away. They right in their own backyard, basically, and they were looking at a point guard, and they were looking at those opportunities. They came close to striking a deal, but there were real negotiations between the Portland Trail Blazers for the rights to the number 3 overall pick in Zion Williamson. That happened. I will say that factually, unabashedly, I can confirm that 100%. The Blazers did not opt to do it. I have said it over basically the last 2 years now when I have mentioned transactions that have been on the table for the Blazers, that I have said that I agreed with the front office not taking them. That's one of them.
Yep. And I agree. It's not just the injury history, which we have a wrist, we have a knee at Duke.
It's the whole lower body.
You have a torn meniscus his rookie year. You had a thumb sprain that held him out for a lot of games his second year. You had the right foot injury that missed an entire season. And then you go hamstring, calf, ankle, back. That's 10 injuries. We just go through 10 injuries. The guy is not 25 years old.
So there was a period.
And for the texter that's texting this, Sam Bowie and Greg Oden, we don't like injuries here.
No. And it's not just that. It's not just the injury stuff.
And there's
not
everything else.
But there's the weight management stuff. And I don't know if this has ever been reported, but I'll just say it. Zion Williamson was basically banished to Lake Oswego for 4 months to get his ass together 2 years ago.
For Nike. Yeah. Because Nike had just released his signature shoe. They were like, we need this guy healthy. We've got to
And they needed to get him out of New Orleans and away from everything that was around him. And basically, it was a get straight kind of boot camp. And,
did it work?
Well, I mean, what year did he play 70 games?
Very next year.
So a lot of this is the wrong people around him. A lot of this is a Zion issue. A lot of this is I've been told his stepfather is, again, family and having the wrong people around you are very problematic, and having to deal with that kind of stuff. In the same token, what's the price?
If the price is right, you kick the tires on it.
If I told you that they could get Zion Williamson for DeAndre Ayton and Scoot Henderson, would you do it?
Again, depends on where you fall in the lottery, but yeah, you probably I think I'd pull the trigger on that one.
You probably consider it, right?
Yeah.
At bare minimum, it goes to the council.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and again, this isn't me like saying no to Scoot or anything along those lines. It's
more no to DA. It's where the money works.
Yeah, and it's like and where would the Pelicans probably look? I mean, as far as how their roster is built right now. One of the possible transactions for Zion was Jared Allen. They're clearly looking as good as Ismisi looked for them this year. He's still not a starting caliber center.
Yeah,
and DeAndre Ayton is. Now, I've heard mixed reviews of what the Pelicans thought of DA over the last 2 years, because this was something that was still being kind of kicked around. Griffin, I think, was more out than in as it pertained to DA. I don't know what Joe Dumars thinks of DA. I don't know what Joe Dumars thinks of Scoot Henderson. Would he want Shaedon Sharpe? That obviously becomes a lot dicier of a situation, because I think if you polled anybody around the league, who would they believe in more as a top-end talent, I think most of them, despite Shaedon's some inconsistencies, I think people would say that the ceiling is higher on Shaedon than on Scoot.
Right.
Would you say the same thing?
I would say right now, yeah. Yeah. I think that's fair.
So, but Zion's one of a handful of names. I mentioned a couple of names, and you said there was one name on there that did pique your interest. Who was it?
It's just because of the immense amount of talent. It's Ja. I'd mess with that level of crazy. I would mess with that. You saw him last night. The dude's going to ride for you. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the big problems with Ja is Ja has not left the state of Tennessee.
No.
And that's a big problem.
Murray State and all the people around.
Everybody is still around him. That's always been in his life.
And if there's one thing about Portland that does happen to players is, they get up around here and it's 85% white, but you can't go anywhere or do anything stupid without getting caught.
Right.
Which is I will be bluntly honest. It is a reason why. Not the reason, but is one of the many reasons why it is hard to get players to Portland, because they are in a fishbowl.
Yeah.
But look, if Ja was made available, and it would cost substantial, despite the negative marks against Ja, who has his own litany of injuries to deal with.
Yes, he does.
And then obviously all of the off-court stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm with you in the sense of you should definitely kick tires. You should always make the phone call.
Yep.
I am not there as far as if let's just say the money isn't perfect. It's close for DA and Scoot. If you're saying that's the crux of the deal, I'd have to take it to the council.
Okay.
I'd have to go, okay, I need current medicals. I need intel on every single thing. And even then, it would be with so much hesitance. I would just sit there just screaming. And the fan text line right now is, Portland is a perfect spot for Zion for that exact reason. Look, if you're trying to convince yourself that it would work, Nike bringing him up here and out of everything and then having him have the season that he had,
right,
is the most, at least to me, convincing evidence.
Yeah.
Because Nike has made some bets over the last couple of years that have not worked out for them.
No, they have not.
Having him in their backyard, I think, would be a very good like green flag, as it were, in the mark of like, not only would we be supporting of this, and I used we as the Trailblazers, but also the swoosh. They would have vested. Who was the last great Nike athlete here?
That lived here?
I mean, like as part of the Blazers. Sheed?
Wasn't Brandon Roy Nike?
Oh, that's right. Brandon. Well, his was such a short period.
Yeah.
That I forget. Yeah.
But that would be it. That would be it. Brandon Roy,
the ambassador, as it were.
Yeah.
If they could redeem his reputation, his value, with everything behind it,
would be nice. It would be nice.
And again, to the same point with Ja, like also a guy who came. I can't even squeeze my fingers together close enough to describe how close he got to getting his shoe ripped away from him.
No doubt about it.
And they invested a lot in him. So the poll is up at Danny and Dusty. Should the Trailblazers kick the tires on Zion Williamson and everything else that gets in the way for that?